Congratulations again to all of tonight's award winners, and I would now like to begin tonight's featured presentation. Our Chamber of Commerce family includes businesses, old and new, large and small, but as we celebrate one community, one family, we would like to pay special tribute to 5 Terre Haute businesses that have spanned 5 generations. To assist us in honoring these businesses, local attorney, magistrate judge, and for many, the voice of Terre Haute, Craig McKee will share a brief history of each. Craig, please join me on stage.
Thank you, Dottie. Before I begin, I just took a call from Jeffrey Haynes, and he needs $500. The Chamber tonight honors legacy and loyalty. Businesses that have roots in the 19th century, grew in the 20th, and thrive in the 21st. To honor a 5-generation business is astonishing when one considers that when these businesses began, texts were called telegrams. In fact, they later invented the telephone so that you could actually talk to a person instead of sending a text message, but that's another matter altogether. What is undeniable is that these businesses continue today as reins were handed to family successors who adapted and survived. They incorporated technology, reshaped business plans, expanded product lines, and pursued opportunities. All of this, despite panics and depressions, wars and elections, changes in transportation, the advent of advertising, and reinventing ways to communicate with suppliers and customers. Would the forebears of these businesses be baffled and amazed by our world? I think they would. What would not surprise is that running a business today or before the Civil War requires full engagement, hard work, courage, adaptability, and a capacity for overcoming adversity. At the end of this presentation, there will be photos on the screen. I'll ask representatives of all 5 to stand so that we can together congratulate them. But it's my honor to recognize these 5-generation businesses as part of one community, one family. Baszler's. As you heard in the introduction, George C. Baszler and Herman H. Wittenbrock opened a meat market near what is 14th and Wabash today in 1894. 12 years later, George took over the business alone. And for the more than 100 years since, there has been a Baszler's in Terre Haute. George and later his son Herman operated Baszler's until the 1950s in various locations along Wabash. In 1955, Charles Baszler affiliated with IGA and expanded operations from a meat market to a full grocery line. Many here will remember the 1963 version of Baszler's at 25th and College. In the early 1970s, the next generation, young, at least young then, Robert Baszler came along, joined the business, and you can still find him in the business today, sacking groceries, walking the aisles, chatting with customers, and diversifying his business in the increasingly complex world of the modern food market. Bob's son, Casey, is there as well, making the 5th generation in the business. Baszler's has a well-established reputation for customer service, outstanding employees, and quality products. Or as one meat cutter who worked for 3 of the 5 generations put it, they all told me not to handle anything I wouldn't buy myself, and that's how I operate. And that's how Baszler's has operated through 5 generations and nearly 120 years. Next, yes. I'll see you there tomorrow night. I'm there 6 nights a week, so I'm just sucking up because when I retire, I want to be a concierge at Basler's. We next honor Hendrik Teitel. In 1867, German immigrant W.E. Will Hendrik established the Hendrik Abstract Company. Even then, the capacity to locate, compile, and store recorded documentation of real estate was a critical service. Hendrik Title Company, as it is now known, has adapted with the business, moving from the courthouse to its own location, adapting from paper to microfilm to digital technology, adding title insurance to its services, and reliably providing accurate and timely service to realtors, attorneys, banks, and their clients. Will Hendrik's daughter, Linda, eventually worked in the courthouse location where she met and later married a local attorney named Josephus Collett Davis. Their daughter, Mary Florence, who those of my vintage and older would have known as Davy, eventually worked in the business, and in doing so, she met her husband, a local attorney, Benjamin G. Cox. And their son, Benjamin Gill Cox, Jr., and his wife, Cindy, and Gill's sisters, Emily Gedrick and Collett Cox, eventually succeeded to the business. They were also part of the familiar and distinguished law firm of Cox, Werner, Gamble, and Sullivan. Gill and Cindy have continued business operations and of late have brought in their daughter-in-law, Kathy, to manage the closing department. And they pay particular tribute to Deborah Keller, who's played a critical role in the business for more than 20 years and is the company president. So nearly 150 years later, we still buy and sell land, we still need a clear chain of title, and we still need a business with the records, the know-how, the service orientation, and experience to make those transactions happen. From those handwritten abstract slips to the computerized documents we see today, Hendrik has been making it happen for 5 generations. We next recognize Holman and Company. No name associated with Terre Haute is better known than Holman. Long before the company's interests expanded to communications and auto racing, Holman and Company was in the wholesale grocery business and traces its roots to Herman Holman, grandfather of Anton Holman Jr., whose influence over our community still is evident nearly 40 years after his death. We find ourselves in Holman Center. The enterprise grew from wholesale grocery to a new opportunity, a formula for baking powder. Marketed as Crystal and Dauntless, Herman's goal was to be the primary supplier to bakers in a 4-county area. He succeeded, and eventually provided baking powder all over the world. Those products ultimately would be known as Clabber Girl baking powder. That was back in the early 1920s, and that's the name it's still known by today. Herman's son, Anton Sr., to Anton Jr., the business passed. With the younger Tony, the Tony Holman we knew, adopting bold marketing approaches, traveling the country to make Clabber Girl a household name. He succeeded. The wholesale grocery business didn't close until the early 1990s, but Clabber Girl has done nothing but grow in the period since, particularly as it has expanded its product line not only to baking soda, but to cornstarch and various processed foods such as cheesecakes, puddings, and gelatins. We, who live in Terre Haute, have watched Clabber Girl grow literally over this last generation with new construction, expansion in downtown Terre Haute, and the obvious care they have taken of the flagship building at 9th and Wabash. Clabber Girl may be the most local of the Holman enterprises, but it is the parent of even more high-profile businesses called IndyCar, IMS Productions, and of course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Holman family, Herman and 4 succeeding generations of Holmans, or this 5th generation of the George family, have been employing people in Terre Haute and elsewhere in a business with worldwide recognition. We salute Hallman and Company. We next recognize Industrial Supply. Industrial Supply will observe its centennial next year, so it is a 20th century business into the 21st. It started in Brazil, supplying coal mines, and then eventually supplying the brick and tile manufacturers that were very common in Clay County in the early 20th century. Among its founders was McMillan H. Johnson Sr., the original company vice president, and his son-in-law, Harley R. Ireland Sr., a Clay County native who had started his work life at age 12 as an office boy. While both of these founders were involved also in coal mining and brick making, Mr. Ireland eventually came back to this core business and moved it to Terre Haute in 1919. Over the years, Industrial Supply has operated in multiple locations as other family members joined the business with each succeeding generation, including Harley Ireland III, who joined in 1931. The senior Ireland died unexpectedly in 1932, and despite that tragic loss and the adversity of Depression and World War, Industrial Supply hung in and emerged in the middle of the 20th century in good condition, growing its facilities and diversifying its product line. By 1966, its warehousing capacity had doubled, and the business's product line was expanding from mine and mill supply to collateral opportunities in plumbing and heating. The core of today's Industrial Supply is as a distributor of pipes, valves, fittings, various industrial supplies, and plumbing fixtures and parts. Having worked around the family business as a youth, Donald, son of Harley III, joined the company in 1977, and the fifth generation, brothers Tristan and Jason Ireland, work there today. Industrial Supply in 2014 is in the same downtown headquarters it has occupied for most of its existence, but now also has branch facilities in Danville, Illinois, Plainville, Connecticut, and Madison, Indiana. We salute Industrial Supply. Our final honoree is the Prox Company. The influence of German immigrants is a common thread in our local history, and it certainly is evident tonight. Frank P.H. Prox was arriving in the United States in the same year Will Hendrick was opening his abstract company, 1867. A coppersmith by training, Frank went into business with a partner in 1875 to do gas fitting, plumbing, and copper work. The partner fell out after 2 years, but Frank pressed on and moved the business where it was on Wabash Avenue to a location across the street from where we are now on North 9th Street, and Prox Company was born. Thereafter, in the company of various partners, Frank developed hoisting engines for mines and ran a foundry that created multiple products for manufacturers, including cast iron heating boiler castings. The business expanded to build coal mine cars, and by the early 20th century concentrated on foundry operations and coal machinery. Prox Company today is located on South First Street, the same location it has occupied since 1911. Somehow a foundry and a growing downtown really weren't working well together, and so they relocated long ago, more than 100 years ago, to the current location. But it has stayed put since, as Frank's son Herman succeeded him as president, and his son Robert F. Prox Sr. succeeded him, and then to Robert F. Prox Jr., who became president in 1960 and held that position until 2007. And today, Bob's daughter Ann is the president and general manager of the company. Prox Company manufactures replacement parts for underground mining machines that cut coal, salt, soda ash, and potash. It also manufactures cutting parts for the railroad business. Nearly 140 years after it was founded, Prox Company is still a part of Indiana's coal industry and still in family hands 5 generations later. We honor the Prox Company. We're grateful for all that the company shared about their businesses and their history. I don't want you to think that I am a genealogist by trade. They've been very helpful in helping to trace the family line. But these are 5-generation businesses, and these are remarkable achievements. Yet there is something that our friends at Holman and Company shared that touch upon how all of them got here, how all of them got to 2014 from one generation to the next. It's a letter to Herman Holman while he was still in Germany, written by his brother Francis, who already had emigrated here in the 19th century. It's a letter about the country Francis had discovered and how Francis encouraged his brother to join him here. "Follow my advice," wrote Francis. "There is still time. You will lead an entirely different life, be a different person, a free man, independent. In this free and happy America, poverty and ignorance do not reign. The laws are good, and wealth and well-being reign everywhere," said Francis Holman. The forebears of these businesses recognized and seized those opportunities in this country, a place where life and loyalty, labor and liberty make possible these exemplary businesses we honor tonight. So you can turn the house lights up just a little bit. I want to introduce the representatives who are here. Ask that you hold your applause until all have been introduced. At table 26, we have representatives of Basler's. I know Bob is here, Casey is here, Nick is here. I saw Julie stand. The whole table stands. Okay. At table 60, and I think they have a couple of tables, are representatives of Hendrick Title Company, including Gil and Cindy Cox, Emily Gedrick, and other representatives of the company and the family. Please stand and remain standing. Basler, Bob, show leadership. Get them all to stand, please. At table 24 and 24A, kind of like the horse races, they're coupled. Representatives of Holman and Company, led by Gary Morris and Marla Flowers. You please stand. At table 58, representatives of Industrial Supply, including Jason Ireland. They said Don isn't here. I think he's filling an order down the street. And I know at one of the Hendrick tables, Ann Prox is here representing the Prox Company. Now, let's honor these friends of ours who have sustained businesses for 5 generations. Thank you very much.